The room smelled faintly of citrus candles and something sweet I couldn't place. Maybe it was the glazed tarts lined up behind the espresso machine. I had arrived 5 minutes early, carrying the pie I'd baked, that morning peach cobbler Levi's favorite when he was little. Savannah took it from me without a word, set it aside on the counter without looking at it. "Glad you made it," she said. Her smile tight, already turning away. The table was set for 12. Cloth napkins, real silverware water, glasses already beating with condensation. I chose the seat near the end, out of the way, but still close enough to hear conversation if I strained. Savannah fluttered from chair to chair, greeting her family with kisses, laughter, and those over-pronounced exclamations she used around people she wanted to impress. Her mother wore a silk blouse and a pinched expression. Her father clinked ice into his drink. I folded my hands and waited. When the food came out, it was beautiful plated salmon with grilled lemon slices, asparagus in neat bundles, and for dessert, delicate fruit tarts arranged on white ceramic dishes. The plates moved past me. To Savannah's parents, her brother, his wife, the cousins. Even Savannah's hairdresser, who I only recognized because she'd done the makeup for Levi and Savannah's wedding. Then the tray stopped. Savannah turned to me. "I didn't forget you, Maureen," she said, laying down a small side salad in front of me. 3 cherry tomatoes and a handful of lettuce. No plate? No salmon. She leaned in slightly, voice high and cheerful. "Only family gets salmon." There was a soft wave of laughter, like someone had told a clever joke. Someone clinked a glass. Someone else coughed. I smiled with my lips, not my eyes. My napkins stayed folded on my lap. My fork untouched. I turned toward Levi. He was already cutting into his salmon, chewing slowly, avoiding my gaze like it burned. He reached for his water without a word. I felt the room dim, not literally just a sharp drop in warmth. A reminder I didn't belong at this table even though I'd spent half my life making sure he'd always have one. I looked down at the untouched salad, then back at him. And I started to see things clearly for the first time in years. I wasn't always quiet. Not really. When Levi was young, I filled every space with motion school drop-offs, late shifts at the shop grocery runs, with coupons clipped into neat stacks. There wasn't time to be still. Not when it was just the 2 of us after Warren died. 27 years I had with that man. We met at the farmer's market, where he sold peaches, and I sold bouquets. He used to slip one into my apron pocket when I wasn't looking. "You deserve sweetness without asking for it," he'd say. He died one Tuesday morning before breakfast. A pain in his chest, then gone. He was 52. I was 49. Levi was 17. After that, the house was too quiet. Levi tried to be strong, but he grieved sideways through silence or sarcasm, or locking himself in his room with loud music and unfinished homework. I kept moving. I had to. I worked 38 years in that flower shop. My hands knew how to wrap hydrangeas in tissue before my mind caught up with the grief. I packed lunches at 5:30 every morning, drove carpool when the other moms flaked, saved for Levi's prom tux, paid the deposit on his first apartment. When he and Savannah got engaged, he looked so proud bringing her home. I stayed polite even when she asked if I could move the country-style decor out of sight for their engagement dinner. I smiled and boxed up every photo without argument. Then I sold my wedding ring so they could meet the down payment on their first house. 3 years later, when they called about falling behind on the mortgage, I canceled a loan I'd been applying for, one meant to help me open a tiny home floral business, and wired the money to them instead. Savannah said thank you. Once. Over text. But I didn't ask for gratitude. I never did. I believed that giving without conditions was its own kind of reward. And yet, sitting there in front of that empty plate, watching Levi eat like nothing was wrong, I began to wonder, when did being helpful become the same thing as being invisible? I took a sip of water. It tasted like nothing, like habit, like everything I'd let slide. Savannah was never warm, but she was polite in the early years. The kind of polite that wears heels to brunch and thanks you through her teeth. Levi would call after their visits, his voice half apologetic, half hopeful. "She's just not used to people like us," he'd say. I never knew what that meant, but I let it slide. I let a lot of things slide. Back then, he'd still show up on Sundays, bring a bag of coffee or fix a light switch. We'd sit on the porch and talk about work, the weather, whatever came easy. Those visits grew shorter, then less frequent. Eventually, they stopped altogether, unless someone needed something. A favor, a last-minute sitter, an errand no one else could run. I told myself that was still connection, that it counted. So when the lunch invitation came, I felt a flicker. No one was sick. No favors were mentioned. Just join us for lunch to celebrate. I ironed a blouse, bought fresh flowers from the market, baked the cobbler from scratch. I thought maybe they were trying again. Maybe I should too. But the table had already been set without me in mind. There were name cards. Mine was scribbled last minute on a scrap of paper. The chairs were arranged, so I sat at the edge between a cousin I'd never met and a window that leaked cold air. Savannah's mother laughed at a story about a trip to Greece. Her father made a toast to family loyalty. Someone raised their glass. I raised mine half a second too late. Then came the salmon. The dessert. The moment I wasn't included, and the silence that followed. I keep replaying that silence as if listening hard enough will make it sound different, but it never does. No one asked why I didn't eat. No one noticed I hadn't been served. That part still stings, not the food, but the fact that I was the only one who seemed to find it strange. I sat there smiling, like I wasn't starving for something else entirely. And it wasn't the first time I'd been left out. Not even the worst. That came a year earlier, on a different doorstep with pie in my hands and a locked door in front of me. Last Thanksgiving, I made 2 pies, pumpkin and pecan, and wrapped them in clean kitchen towels, still warm. The air was sharp that morning, and I remember the sun casting a golden stripe across the hood of my car as I pulled into their driveway. No cars, no voices. Just a wreath on the front door and a small stack of Amazon boxes leaning to one side. I knocked once, then again. Waited. Checked the time. I was early, yes, but only by 20 minutes. That had never been a problem before. I figured maybe they were upstairs or getting dressed. I walked back to the car to give them a few more minutes. That's when the text came through. From Savannah. "We're just doing something small this year. Just family. Hope you have a good day." No apology. No explanation. Just that just family. I sat in the car for 30 more minutes. I don't know why. Maybe I thought Levi would realize, come outside, call me in. He didn't. No one did. I drove home with the pies still warm in the passenger seat. Ate a slice of pumpkin alone that afternoon. Froze the rest. The pecan stayed untouched until New Year's. The next day, Levi called. His voice was soft, careful. "Sorry about the mix-up," he said. "I thought Savannah had told you the plan changed." I said it was fine. I said I understood. I didn't argue. What would have been the point? I'd learned that pushing for a place you weren't wanted only left bruises in strange places. But it changed something in me. I started keeping mental notes, not just of the big exclusions, but the small ones. The missed calls, the unreturned messages, the dinners I wasn't invited to or was invited to too late. The times I showed up and felt like the furniture. At first, I told myself they were just forgetful. Busy. New parents, new jobs, new lives. Now I see it for what it was. They weren't forgetting. They were deciding. And I was starting to remember something of my own about a certain drawer I hadn't opened in years. I hadn't touched that drawer in years. It stuck slightly at the corners the way old wood does when it hasn't been opened in a while. I had to tug once then again before it gave, inside beneath a stack of cards I couldn't bring myself to throw away, and receipts from a life I used to share with someone sat the old file folder, cream-colored, a little warped from humidity, and labeled in my handwriting, Levi House. I slid it out slowly. The paper was still crisp, though the ink had begun to fade around the edges. The deed was there, signed, stamped, notarized. One line near the top always caught my eye. Maureen L. Callan. My name, not in the fine print, not as a witness, as co-owner. When Levi and Savannah wanted to buy that house, they didn't qualify on their own. He called me late one night, voice tight with embarrassment. We're so close, Mom. We just need a little help with the down payment. Just to get approved. I didn't even think twice. I withdrew a large portion from my savings signed where the agent told me to sign and told them to pay me back when they could. I never once brought it up. Not when they remodeled the kitchen. Not when they posted housewarming photos on social media and thanked Savannah's parents for their generosity and support. I let it go. I let everything go. But this time, something had shifted. I could feel it in my chest, cold, deliberate, and steady. I looked at my name on the deed for a long time. Not with guilt, not even with regret. Just clarity. I had given and given. Let myself shrink until there was nothing left to cut from. And for what? So they could hand me a salad and a smirk, I slid the deed back into the folder and placed it in my bag, tucking it between my wallet and my reading glasses. Not as a threat, not as a weapon, just as a reminder that I had never been as powerless as they wanted me to believe. And I intended to act like it. I didn't plan to stand up. I didn't rehearse a speech or write anything down. But as I sat there staring at that half-wilted salad and watching my son slice into his salmon like I wasn't sitting 6 feet away, something inside me rose up without asking permission. So I pushed back my chair. The scrape of the legs on tile turned more heads than my voice ever had. Levi glanced up finally. Fork paused midair. Savannah kept eating, barely looking at me. Am I not family? I asked clearly without raising my voice. The room shifted. Glasses stilled in hands. Someone coughed. Levi set his fork down slowly. Don't do this here, he said, like I was disrupting a funeral instead of defending my place at a table I helped pay for. Savannah laughed. That light, careless laugh she used when she wanted to stay in control. It's just food, Maureen. No, I said. It's not. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't break. It's the message. The same one you've been sending for years. And I've let you because I thought eventually you'd make room. I thought Levi would speak up. But I see now I'm not meant to be part of this family. Just useful to it. Savannah rolled her eyes, but others were watching now. Cousins, aunts, people who hadn't noticed until someone made them. I'm not just a woman you forgot to serve lunch, I said. I'm the woman who helped buy the house you live in. I'm the reason you ever had a place to host these lunches at all. A sharp breath cut across the table. Someone whispered, Wait, what? A cousin leaned forward. You paid for the house. I looked at her calm. I didn't want anyone to feel small. That mistake was mine. Levi looked down, jaw tight. Savannah's face paled just slightly. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I'd told the truth, and the weight of it had already started to shift the air in the room. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder, and I placed it on the table in front of them. I laid the manila folder on the table in front of Levi. Not hard, just enough to be heard. Enough to make them look at something besides themselves for once. This is a certified copy of the deed, I said, my voice steady. My name is still on it. Always has been. Levi didn't touch it. His eyes flicked to Savannah, whose smile had vanished. I'm having it removed, I continued. But not before it's listed for sale. You'll have 30 days to make other arrangements. The room fell silent. Chairs stopped shifting. Forks rested on plates. It was the kind of silence that could only come from people realizing something was no longer under their control. Savannah stood so quickly, her chair knocked against the wall. You wouldn't dare. I looked at her. Not with anger, not with bitterness, just with a kind of long-earned clarity. I dared for years, I said, reaching for my coffee. I just finally stopped asking permission. Levi's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wondered if he even knew the terms of the loan I'd helped secure, if he ever bothered to read the fine print or just let Savannah explain it to him while he nodded along. Either way, it didn't matter now. I took a sip of the coffee. It had gone cold. Still, I finished it. You're throwing this all away, Savannah hissed. Over what, some fish and a dessert? I shook my head, standing slowly. You think this is about salmon. You think it's about a slice of fruit tart. This is about 7 years of being useful, but never welcome. Of watching my son disappear into someone else's comfort while I stayed quiet out of love. No one interrupted me now. Not even the ones who laughed earlier. They just sat eyes wide, afraid to move. I gave you both a house, I said. And still, you gave me a folding chair and a half-warm salad. I pushed in my chair, folded my napkin neatly, and placed it beside the empty plate. Then I turned, without raising my voice, and walked toward the door. 2 weeks passed. The house hit the market on a Thursday afternoon. The listing went live with fresh photos and a price that made Savannah's voice crack when she called Levi from the porch. I wasn't there to hear it, but the neighbor across the street, Marcy, mentioned it over coffee later. She was pacing like someone had stolen the air out of her lungs. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw it in anyone's face. I just waited quietly while the foundation they built on my silence started to crumble. Levi tried first with reason. Mom, we can fix this. It doesn't have to be like this. Then came guilt. You'd really put your own grandkids out like this. Then came anger. You've lost it. This is insane. I listened to the voicemails. I didn't return them. By the end of the week, he stopped trying. Or maybe he just realized I wasn't going to. Savannah, on the other hand, took a different approach. I heard from Marcy again, who heard from the mail carrier, that Savannah had been calling me vindictive to anyone who'd listen. She's acting like we stole from her, she reportedly said. She's just bitter because no one made her the center of attention. But not everyone believed her. A few people from the lunch reached out. One cousin sent a short message. I saw everything. I'm sorry. That was wrong. Another asked if I needed help packing. I told them thank you, but I was fine. Because I was. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't auditioning. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't softening my voice so others could feel big. I had done what I always did, helped, gave, supported. The difference now was that I had stopped pretending it didn't cost me anything. I walked past the for sale sign one morning on my way to the corner store. A car slowed as it passed. I didn't wave. I didn't need to. Let them talk. I had given them everything they asked for until the one time I finally said no. And now I had something else, an offer. Above asking price. The offer closed faster than I expected. Clean buyer, cash in hand, no contingencies. My portion wired directly into an account I opened just for me. Levi didn't call when the sale finalized. Savannah didn't write. That silence said more than either of them ever had. I packed what I wanted, left the rest, and signed a lease on a 1-bedroom cottage in Hendersonville. It sat on the edge of town, tucked behind a row of dogwoods. The roof needed work. The bathroom tiles were cracked. But it was mine. Entirely mine. A week after moving in, I accepted a remote contract with a garden magazine. My job was simple: curate photo submissions from florists across the country, offer feedback, approve layouts for print. I knew flowers better than most, and it felt good to work again. Not to survive, but to stay sharp. The cottage was small and quiet in a way that didn't ache. It didn't echo with someone else's opinions or tiptoe around someone else's moods. It held its own kind of rhythm. I woke when I wanted. I brewed coffee how I liked it, black, strong, and without judgment. I listened to music without asking if it was too loud. I bought fresh salmon from the market on Thursdays, grilled it how I liked, skin side down, simple seasoning. Some nights, I sat on the porch with a glass of water, and nothing else. No phone, no background noise, just the wind brushing through the trees and the sound of a life no longer being held up by obligation. People talk about quiet like it's something to fear. But this quiet, it had weight. It had meaning. It didn't ignore me or pass through me. It held me. I didn't think of Levi every day anymore. When I did, it wasn't with anger, just distance. The kind of distance that settles in after the tide pulls back and you realize the footprints you left were washed away long ago. I closed my laptop one afternoon after reviewing the final draft of a fall spread. There was a soft knock at the door. Not urgent, not expected, just a sound, a reminder. The envelope didn't have a return address, but I recognized Levi's handwriting before I turned it over. Careful, small letters. Like he thought neatness might soften what was inside. I opened it at the kitchen counter, the coffee still steeping. One page. No greeting, no apology. I hope you're okay, it said. I just wanted you to know that. I folded it neatly and slid it into the drawer by the fridge. The same drawer where I keep batteries, takeout menus, and other things I don't plan to use but can't quite throw away. I poured my coffee and cut a slice of the peach cobbler I'd baked the night before. Not for a gathering, not to bring somewhere, just because I felt like it. I carried both outside and settled into the chair on the porch. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the light was warm enough. A few birds passed overhead, their wings slicing the air like ribbon. I took a bite of the cobbler, sweet, buttery soft where it needed to be. It reminded me of years ago when Levi was small and still looked at me like I was the answer to everything. I thought about that empty plate again, the one Savannah laid in front of me, all polished silver and nothing to eat. At the time, it had felt like the final insult. The clearest sign that I didn't belong, not even enough to warrant a meal. But now, sitting here, I saw it differently. It had been the truth. Maybe the only honest moment in years. They didn't try to cover it with fake pleasantries or backhanded praise. They showed me exactly where I stood. And in doing so, they gave me the clearest path out. No more guessing, no more hoping, no more bending myself into something digestible. They served me nothing. And for once I took it as a gift. I finished my coffee and leaned back, letting the quiet stretch around me. The letter stayed in the drawer. The past stayed where it was, and I finally didn't have to.